strong people? Kalle Beck here from StartingStrongman.com. It's World's Strongest Man Week. It's coming up. It's next week. And I did my video going over the groups and the events. Now we know what events each group is doing. And what I'm going to do in this next series of videos is break down each group. Just the group. I can talk long enough about one group at a time instead of trying to go through all five, and I feel like I miss things. So I'm going to do all of these on the same day. This is the first one. It's going to go up right now, and then each one's going to go out day by day, but all five are going to be live on Patreon. So you can go to patreon.com/startingstrongman, and if you want to see all the videos right now, you can, and that helps support what I do and trying to make the sport of strongman more accessible for everyone. And I thank you for your support. So group one includes Brian Shaw, Ivars Smokestellis, Graham Hicks, Maxime Boudreau, and Travis Ortmeyer. They're doing a loading medley, the squat, fingle fingers, overhead medley, and pickaxe hold. Then whoever's in second and third goes and does a stone off. The stone off, I believe, is a series. There's been some rumors that they're doing reps at the end of the series, but none of this is confirmed. These are just kind of rumors. So basically, each group, some are going to be doing squat, some are going to be doing deadlift, some are going to be doing fingle fingers, some are going to be doing the train pull. So group one, the loading medley. This is going to be between Maxime and Ivars. Brian Shaw needs to make sure that he has picked up his foot speed. I know he's lost some weight. I think it's interesting how people always say that, you know, they think you're going to get faster and more athletic by losing weight, when I think it's one factor that makes people be quick in medleys, but it's far from the most important factor. I think training the things to be fast and keeping up with the athletic side of your training seems to help. And you see a lot of people that come into the sport, like Brian Shaw, Hafthor Bjornsson. They won all the medleys when they first started because they were athletes from other sports. So they still had some of that athletic benefit, that then they just had to get stronger. Then they spend a decade or so getting stronger. They get older, and they hadn't, all they had to do was get stronger because they were already more athletic than some of the guys, but they weren't as strong as people like Zydrunas. So to win, they had to get stronger. Then you neglect your strengths, and I think that's more of what we see with someone like Brian Shaw not being as fast at stuff like loading medleys. When a young Shaw, that's where he shined. Of course, age as well. He's almost 40 now. But that's going to be a very important event for Brian. And I think it really depends. I don't think he's going to beat Maxime or Ivars in it unless, he's capable. We've seen it in his early years like we're talking about, but we're talking over 10 years ago. But it's just more on the fact on that. I think if he beats Graham and Travis is... I mean this in the best word, a psychopath when he competes. Some of the most intensity you've ever saw, and sometimes that can result in someone going very quickly. And Travis has tons of experience. Graham hasn't looked as quick as late. Last year he mostly did powerlifting. Maybe he's done a little bit more complete training. Before he did Worlds, he was just doing powerlifting, super statically strong, and was focusing on that. Maybe he's, picked it back up in some of the medley work and stuff and improved. But I don't think he's going to beat Brian on that. It is possible Brian could get fifth in the medley, but I have him in third. Onto the squat, I think that's Graham Hicks all day. I think Travis is going to struggle, and Maxime. Ivars, I don't think is the strongest lower body person there. Squat is better for Maxime than deadlift by a long shot, but still not his strongest event. But if you look, Brian's and Graham will be right at the top on that. But if you look at Ivar's and Travis, it might be a strong event for Maxime. He could get third, and that would be big. Him getting third in some sort of, what is like the lower body static lift is big points for Maxime. So that's possible, but I would say Graham wins, Brian in second. But Brian could win it as well. And Maxime in third. I could be wrong in Ivers. I'd have to go back and look at what he did last year, but I don't remember him having a super strong showing in whatever the squat or the deadlift he did in his heat. And where it gets interesting is the overhead medley. I don't think it's the heaviest weight in the world that they're doing. They're probably doing that circus barbell and some sort of circus dumbbell, some sort of order like that, maybe a log in there. Usually it's about 3 implements they do in these kind of overhead medleys. And it doesn't end with anything that's like over 400 pounds, generally, but we never know what happens. Usually it's like the last implement's like 360 or so, and they're kind of awkward, and it's more about who moves the best in between each implement and is able to get their positions quickly and efficiently that wins these sort of events. And for this, I think Graham's the best static presser in there, but Maxime sent me a video earlier and he was doing like around a 200 kilogram log, and it looked crazy. I think he was the Canadian log record holder at one point, if not still is, so don't count him out. I do think he attacks things a little bit more than Graham. I think he struggled slightly with the circus dumbbell for reps, but if it's 1 rep, I think he'd do good. But I would pick Maxime to do well in that. And it just depends on... I think Travis is definitely going to struggle in that one. And Ivers is decent at overhead, not great, but it's going to be who's quick and actually attacks them and doesn't make mistakes. It really depends on how much it weighs. But I pick at Maxime to win it, and Graham and Brian. But, if Brian gets third in that, that's big for people like Maxime and Graham. Then we go on to the single fingers. I would expect Graham to struggle here, maybe Maxime as well. Well, actually, the single fingers was first. Brian Shaw's he's going to win it. Ivers is the kind of person who's very athletic and good at those events. I'd expect him to do well. And Travis might as well. It depends. I just don't know how healthy Travis is. I know at one point Travis is capable of doing single fingers. Maybe with another year of prep he is to do well in that. But I don't see anyone beating Brian. It looks like it's a heavy finger set, and I think Brian takes that. And then I already did the overhead medley. Then the pickaxe hold, which we're just going to assume it's a front hold. It could be 2 pickaxes on the side. Don't know. Let's just assume it is a front hold. And that's such a wild card event. We don't see that very often out of Strongman Champions League at a high level. We've seen it a little bit at some of the Giants live show, but that's more with the British athletes doing it. I think it was at Europe's this last year. Last year it was at some Britain's Strongest Man with like a hammer hold. Generally, events like that are good if you kind of have short arms and you're strong in the chest and everything, and you're able to get in your position. So I'd expect Graham and Maxime to do well, considering those things. I think Ivars would do well. Considering, he's done Strongman Champions League and they do lots of holds, and he seems to be a well-rounded, old school kind of strongman in that way, doing the various types of event, less of the log press deadlifts, heavy yoke, straight shot kind of strongman that, we've seen a lot of the past 5 years. And Travis has such long arms. I don't think it's and some older shoulder issues. I don't think it would be the strongest event for him. And the one that I don't know how to pick on it is Brian Shaw and the pickaxe. You'd assume he'd do good, but when's the last time you've ever seen him do a front hold? he has giant arms, but he's also giant. He has to get blood flow to his arms are bigger than my entire body, and he has to get blood flow to them, and they're cramp up. There was a couple. What was it? 2019 at Worlds where it was like the bead of sweat messed him up in the car hold for time. So I don't know if like those kind of just have to sit there and take the pain and do everything as if you've made the finals the last 12 years, it's a little harder to be like, okay, I can just hold this and be good. Like, you feel like you're not hungry like that in the same way as my fear. But it's an interesting heat because we have the most decorated strongman in the competition, Brian Shaw, and we have some other very talented athletes that kind of and Brian's well rounded, except he can be a little slow these days on stuff, and I think he'd admit that himself. But then we have some other absolute killers in this group that have some big holes in their game overall at this level. Everyone's good at everything, but we're talking about the 25 best in the world. When you compare them all together, some of them rank up in the top 5 in some events and at the bottom 5 in some events. So you would think Brian's going to take this because he's I think he's just going to be consistent the whole time. And some of these other people might get first and second, but they also might get fourths and fifths. And Brian, I don't think will ever get below third in this, and that's why I would say he would win this event. But the big ifs on this, I think, are the Fingal Fingers with how everyone's going to do but Brian, because we're pretty sure how Brian's going to do in that. And then just how's everyone going to do in the Pickaxe Hold. And what I do like is that they're doing 5 full events to see who wins the heat, and then they have to do the extra stones. So it's not like 4 events. I still hate that there is a stone off, but at least whoever wins the group has to do 5 full events instead of just 4 like in years past. So overall, I'm going to say Brian's made 12 finals in a row or something, and he's always won his group. So I'd say Brian wins, and it's between Ivars and Maxime in the stone off. Oh, and I think Ivars would take that, but I wouldn't be surprised either way. But I also would not be shocked in a scenario where Maxime wins this group and Shaw and Ivars go into a stone off, and no one in this group's beaten Brian in a stone off. But I think Brian would be pretty upset if he has to go into a stone off and waste all that energy. Then you're doing 6 events before the finals. I think Graham will also do well. I think he's going to destroy the squat and could probably beat anyone in any of these groups in the squat. I just think it's kind of... And he could win the pickaxe too. It's just, this is a very hard group. All of them are. It's so competitive these days. It's great. So next video on to group 2. And if it's not on my YouTube, check it out at patreon.com/startingstrongman.